That's one thing I will not do. We made a deal right from the beginning. I'm not singing because that's when the audience would all leave the hall. That would not be good.
Not even as the encore, so we can get people
that's it. No singing.
My name is Michael Feinstein.
My name is Jean-Yves Thibaudet.
And the program that we were presenting is called Who Could Ask for Anything More?
I was always a great fan. And when I knew I was going to meet you, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to meet Michael Feinstein. How exciting.
I think it is fundamental for many musicians to have a curiosity to explore more. Yet, in putting together the kind of program that we both have dreamed of and conceived, it takes many, many hours of thought and contemplation to come up with something that expresses what we wish to give. When one considers the premiere of Rhapsody in Blue, there was a fascinating cross-section of attendees, including many classical musicians. And I believe that Rachmaninoff was there, among others, because they were curious to hear what this was about, because it was so highly publicized in advance of the premiere of Rhapsody in Blue. And yet, one always assumes that if they are a classical composer, that their musical tastes stick to that lane, and that is not the case. For example, when Tchaikovsky came to the United States in 1891 for the opening of Carnegie Hall, one of the things that he did, which is not at all well documented, is that he wanted to go downtown in New York to Tin Pan Alley and to hear all of the American popular songs of that time, because they were fascinating to him. And of course, famously, Dvorak in the New World Symphony included a spiritual, which was his homage to American spiritual music in that history. So the interest of composers in different types of music is very well reflected in that period and in this program.
When you think of the time of Chopin and Liszt, when they were performing, I mean, we don't have records, unfortunately, but we know for a fact that they were improvising most of the time. Mm. So they would know where they were going, but they would add a flourish there, an octave there. Mm. They would play different every time. And then at some point they had to write it on a piece of paper for the publisher. But there was not such a thing of everything was written so precisely. There was a lot of freedom in there, which I think we've lost a little bit in our world, the classical world sometime. And it's so refreshing to be able, I mean, for me, it's been so fantastic to do anything that is out of, do a jazz project, this project for me means so much because of that, because I think it's so enriching. We just enrich our lives so much from doing that.
It's one of those musical collaborations that can work well in many different situations, because it is very rich and serious musically on one level, and on another level, it's very fun and lively and upbeat in the sense of the humor and joy in the music of this period, because it is so filled with the spark of hope and promise in the world. Composers with confidence understand that their voice is one that can be expressed in many different ways. And that's the common bond between George Gershwin and Ravel and Rachmaninoff or Irving Berlin, in that they knew who they were musically and what they could express, and knew how they could express it in different ways. And that's fascinating. And it takes a certain kind of confidence to believe that the public will accept something that they write in a different style if they are being true to themselves, as opposed to writing something in a different style and saying, oh, well, I have to write this differently because of all these other factors. And there are many composers that fall into the trap of trying to please the public and the critics and compromising in a certain way that inevitably results in the music not being accepted.
I've been saying for years and always hoping that somehow the beautiful music that is in those scores that are in the movies, that it has a second life in a concert hall, because you've got those fabulous scores that are in a movie, fine, but that's it. And then they die unless you watch the movie. There's so much material out there and things that are never performed, that are just buried under all these years and will maybe never be. And it's so sad. Great music should be performed in concert hall, should have a live experience with the audience.
I think that the one thing that we both dearly hope with this concept, this idea, this collaboration, is that it will give people a greater appreciation for a certain period of music that has been somewhat obscured and is as good as anything that anyone has ever heard. Certainly people know Gershwin, they may know Richard Rodgers, they know Ravel, they know many of these names. And to put them in this context, we hope will amplify the appreciation not only for the music, but also in the arrangements that we have created and will be playing to give people the sense that this music is just as important as any other music, and most of all, to communicate the joy that we feel in this program to the listeners.
We will have as much joy being on stage performing than we hope we'll give to the audience, and hopefully they'll go home and they will just spend time where they will just forget about everything else in the world and just be happy.
Yes, I hope that people leave saying, that other guy is good too. Whoever
exactly.
it is.
Yeah. I never heard of it, but he's pretty good.
Yeah, he's not bad. He can play the piano. Wow.
No, I think exactly. It'll be good.
And I'm looking forward to see what you wear every night.
That's true, me too.